So in this video, I'm going to go over factoring when there's only two terms. And there's going to be two different cases that we're going to see. The first one is this case. So I have two terms. In this case, I'm missing my C term, my plus some number over here. So I really have a plus 0 there. So whenever that happens, that means I have a GCF. So if I'm missing my C term, I'm going to go straight to looking for my GCF. So looking here, the biggest number that goes into both 8 and 12, it's going to be 4. And then I look to see how many n's I can take out. So this one has n squared. That one's only 1 n, so that means I can only take out 1 n. So that's going to be my first step. And so whenever I'm dividing out the GCF, my GCF comes out in the front. And then I'm going to put whatever I get when I divide out my GCF. So 8 divided by 4, I get 2. N squared divided by n, I get n. 12 divided by 4, I get 3. Then n divided by n is just 1, so that cancels out. And so this is actually the easiest case for factoring because I'm already factored now. I have a 4n times a 2n minus 3, so something times something, but set equal to 0. So this one's actually asking us to solve. So whenever it's equal to 0, that means I need to take each component and set equal to 0 and solve for n. So that means in this case I have 4n is equal to 0. And then 2n minus 3 is equal to 0. To solve this first one, to get n by itself, I need to divide out 4. So I get n is equal to 0 divided by 4, which is 0. Here I have a couple more steps. My first step here is I need to add the 3 to the other side. And then to get rid of that 2, I need to divide by 2. And so I get n is equal to 3/2. So these are going to be my two answers. Another case that you might see with two terms is when you have your A term and your C term. So in this case, I have to put in another term, my middle term, in there so I can factor it normally. And to do that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 0x in the middle. So I have x squared plus 0x minus 36. And then now I'm going to go through the AC method, or split the middle. So I'm going to multiply A and C. And I get negative 36. And then now I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 36 and add to my middle term, 0. So that means it has to be the same number, one positive and one negative. And so the same number multiplied by itself that gets me 36 is going to be negative 6 and 6. And so now I'm going to take those two numbers and split my middle term. So I get negative 6x plus 6x, and then bring down my first and last term. And then now that we have 4 terms, I'm going to go ahead and factor by grouping. So I'm going to pair these off and then take out my GCF in both. So the first one, you're always going to be taking out a letter, in this case x. There's no number I can take out. For the second one, they both don't have an x, so I can't take out an x. But the biggest number that goes into both 6 and 36 is going to be 6. So my GCF comes out in the front. X squared divided by x, I get x. Negative 6x divided by x, I get minus 6. And then again here, my GCF goes out in the front. And then I have x minus 6. And now I know that I did it right because both of these match. And so I just put my GCFs out in the front in their own parentheses. Now again, since it's equal to 0, that means I have to do that extra step of setting both of these equal to 0 and solving for x. So here, I need to subtract 6 on both sides, and I get x equals -6. Here, I need to add 6 to both sides, and so I get my two answers of -6 and 6. So recap, when you have two terms and you're missing the middle term, you need to put a 0x in there to solve. If you have two terms and you're missing your C term, you're just going to be taking out the GCF.